Welcome, I'm Paul, this is Dave. The cutie pie right here. Woo! He can't fly, but let's pretend he can. He doesn't know better. Today I have 16 Glitch in the Matrix and paranormal stories for you. Just a quick note, I've decided to upload the pure audio file to my Patreon for the monthly compilations. You can find July's compilation right now on my Patreon, completely for free. Don't have to pay anything. Let's get to it. Case file number 2841, written by Unimaginative Person, when her memory burned away. When I was little, my sister kept having a dream that there was a fire in a house down the street. Not a huge fire, but enough that the whole neighborhood was out in the middle of the night watching the firemen put it out. The first few minutes, she would not believe it wasn't real until she saw their house. About a year after these dreams started, the neighbor's house caught on fire and everyone, including my sister, watched it being put out in the middle of the night. My sister didn't say anything at breakfast. When asked about how she felt about her dream actually happening, she looked at us like we were crazy. When we said the house had actually caught on fire last night, she started screaming, "No, it was exactly like every other time." She had to see the burnt house before she believed it. I think naturally she was scared by the dream happening in real life. As an adult, she swears this never happened, even though the rest of us all remember it. I can understand the fear from this. If I had dreams that were coming true, even if they weren't negative dreams, that would still be terrifying. There's a lot of power in that, but damn. You don't really want to know the future. At least I don't. I don't want to know that it's written in stone. Like, you can get into, quantum fluctuations and different timelines, but anything close by to the future, a day or so, probably can be predicted pretty accurately, and I just, rather not know. Case file number 2842, written by Spirit Natural 259. It's like rain on old books. For years I've had this thing, this scent. It's not a smell, not really. It's an aroma. It's been following me since college. I'd be alone in my dorm room, studying late, and this whiff of something would drift through the air, like sandalwood and old paper. The scent of a quiet library, but then it would be gone, just as quickly as it appeared. At first I thought it was just the old building or something a neighbor was cooking, but it wasn't, because it followed me. Even when I'm back home for a break, alone in the house during the day, it's still there. Sometimes it was a sweet, floral thing, like jasmine. Other times, something earthly and clean, like rain on dirt. It would appear right next to me, feel like a wave of air, and then vanish. It's not creepy, not at all. It's more comforting. It's not just a scent, it's the scent. It has a personality almost. Sometimes it's warm and grounding, like old books in a sunlit room. Other times it's light and airy, like a spring breeze carrying the scent of distant flowers. It feels like I'm never truly alone, like there's a silent friend just out of sight, always around. I don't know what it is. I've never told anyone. It's just my thing, my little moving scent. Does anyone else have something like this? A phantom sense that's been with you forever? I hardly use perfumes. I personally do not like them. On occasions, yes, but it would also happen in closed rooms, late nights, or when I'm alone. Though in public spaces I understand. Interesting that it's a pleasant smell. I wonder if it's related to you. Is it your own brain conjuring it, or some kind of spirit that's lingering next to you and wants to be loved? So it creates scents that you would like. What would be my scent? The smell of Subway bread. That's my scent. Or it's like in Harry Potter where the love potion is, the scent of it is whatever you like most. That'd be Subway bread for me. Or just donuts. Coffee too. Coffee for sure. Case file number 2843, written by Dummy Q. A real evil twin. Ever since a major life event happened to me, which I won't disclose because of reasons, many people have been seeing me when I'm not actually there. This happened with various exes, best friends, multiple times, coworkers, etc. Some of the time, I wasn't even in the same country or city. Sometimes it's as benign as seeing them at a bus station and not saying hi or anything at all to them, after which they call me to ask me why I was cold. Other times is literally entering a house and saying something to them, then vanishing into thin air or talking to them from the other room just to find out I wasn't there. This happens so many times that it became a new normal for me. It's always malevolent though, in my case. My doppelganger is never kind or polite, it's always either cold or bitchy. As for my own experiences with this, there was only one, and to be honest, I attribute it to some kind of hallucination, even though I never had any hallucinations before. I'm used to living with girlfriends or friends, and this happened a couple of days after breaking up after a 2+ year relationship. I woke up because I felt scratching on my back, turned around and asked my girlfriend why she wasn't asleep. She told me she couldn't sleep and was just playing with me. It wasn't out of character for her to do these things. It wasn't mean-spirited. I shrugged and went to the bathroom, and when I returned to the room, she was still in bed, and I didn't think anything of it and just went to sleep and told her she should sleep as well. While on my side, I suddenly remembered that we broke up and she doesn't live here anymore. She didn't have a spare key either, anymore, so I jumped out of bed, expecting it to be some sick joke. To my surprise, she wasn't there. Nothing like this happened to me before or since. I saw her and interacted with her 100%, no doubt about it. Is it a hallucination every time other people see me? I still can't wrap my head around it, and I don't think I'll ever be able to. I don't think we have answers for many things that happen in this world. Trying to find any kind of logic in this is the wrong step, in my opinion, since it's based on the principles that we know which aren't necessarily true. I fully believe there is some kind of quantum or paranormal component that we aren't aware of yet. Why do some people experience it and not others, though? Well, I am the type that wants to try to apply logic to these kinds of stories. If anyone's a regular, you know that's the case for me. But yeah, there are things we don't understand fully. Maybe we'll never be able to fully understand it. We can't really apply the scientific method because we can't retest it. There's no way to validate our theories. But we can speculate and deduce based on the stories and accounts we have. It's the best we can do for now. Case file number 2844, written by CHPB10. Winning before they played. For context, my husband and I are following a tournament and rooting for a team from our country. This morning, I woke up and checked the time on my phone. I noticed the battery was low, so I headed to the living room to plug it in. While walking, I opened my socials and saw that our team had lost. It was a best-of-3 match, and according to the post, they only won the second game. I remember thinking, wait, weren't they supposed to play in about an hour? I figured maybe I miscalculated the time difference. I charged my phone and went on with my morning routine. Right before we left the house, I unplugged my phone and checked the tournament livestream. That's when I saw that our team hadn't even played yet. Totally confused, I checked the 2 pages I follow. They always post updates in real time. No results. No match posts. Checked the team's page and just a good luck message, posted around the same time that I had woken up. I told my husband and he just said maybe I misread it. But I clearly remember seeing 2 posts, one with the final result and another saying our team won the second match. I joked, "It's a glitch," and we laughed it off on the way to work. Later at work, I checked the live stream. The first match had just ended, and the opponent won, just like I saw earlier. I messaged my husband that if the rest of the results match what I saw this morning, I'm gonna lose my mind. A couple hours passed and I got busy, forgot about the game, until my husband sent me a message that our team lost, and it was indeed the second match that they won. I checked the page again and one of them posted the results almost exactly like I remember from the morning. Same logo placement and all. What the heck happened? Did my phone glitch and show me the future for a couple of hours? Case file number 2845, written by Public Translator 11. A ride into the past. Anyone from my area might know of a theme park that's owned by Six Flags. It's probably the only theme park out in this neck of the woods. A couple years ago, they added a new ride that's basically just a big vertical arm with free rotating seats on either end. I finally got to ride it around the time it opened. was really fun. While I was on this ride, it had to make a stop, normal procedure. It's so people can get in the car on the opposite end of the arm. I'm sitting up top and I look out over the park, enjoying the view from up there. I look over at one of the other rides down below. It's been there since I was a kid, and probably before that. It's a simple ride, just a tiny car on a predetermined track, little kiddie ride. I remember going on it as a kid and started reminiscing about those days. Eventually, the ride I'm on continues its cycle and inevitably ends. I get off and see a kid skipping and hopping toward the ride, with two people behind him, with one that looked strangely familiar. I turned around in a double take and all three were gone. They didn't disappear around a corner. There hadn't been enough time for them to close the distance from where I walked past them to the ride. They were just gone. It wasn't until later, looking at some old Christmas photos of my dad, that it hit me. That's why that one person looked so familiar. If I had to guess who the other person was that I saw with my dad's past self that day, they were probably my uncle. So I was seeing the past in real time. Case file number 2846, written by Embarrassed Process 86, alone in a room full of voices. My two friends and I were sitting at lunch in the cafeteria and, girls being girls, they went to the bathroom together, telling me to join them after I'd finished eating. For context, the bathroom near our cafeteria that we always hung out in wasn't like the classic school bathrooms and only had one stall. It was once intended for faculty, and the stall isn't walled off by the usual plastic and gap doors, but instead has a whole normal wall and door between the toilet and the room with the sink. Above the sink is a mirror, and the entrance door is in direct view when looking into the mirror. So after I finished, maybe 2 minutes after they left, I went to meet them there. I entered the bathroom and found the stall door locked, them talking in there. I knocked and said that I was here and one of them told me they'd open the door in a second. I found it a little weird but just said okay and decided to wash my hands and freshen up in the mirror in the meantime. They'd chat to me through the door and I'd answer, but the conversation grew sparse. A few minutes passed and I realized that they had gone completely quiet. I asked if everything was okay and got no answer. I looked over to the door and it was unlocked, but closed. At this point I felt a little weird and like something was off. I asked, "Hello?" a few times and then opened the door. The stall was empty. I stood there questioning how the hell they could have snuck past me when I was literally standing in the only way out of the stall, seeing the entrance door in the mirror and the stall door in the corner of my eye. I got this sinking feeling in my stomach. Everything felt so wrong. I suddenly realized how strange the entire exchange was, how unlike them it was, but it gets worse. When I arrived back at the cafeteria, I saw them leaving, so I came up to them, and they asked me where I had been and why I hadn't joined them. I was completely sound of mind, and I remember that day like it was yesterday. Literally one of the creepiest things that happened to me. You know, it kinda feels like a prank, but it's not clear how they would have pulled it off. It's something I would organize, back in my high school days. For 1 year anyways, then I was homeschooled. But anyways, yeah. So it feels like a prank, but it doesn't feel like it's possible to be a prank. It's a weird combination. A glitchy prank of some sort. Case file number 2847, written by Sane Tutu. Staring, spilling, slipping. I've had a fairly stressful, but not particularly eventful or unusual day. I came home from work and decided to have a glass of wine. I was feeling somewhat emotional, but nothing really unusual or new to me. I was overthinking, daydreaming, spacing out. I poured a glass of wine and sat in my living room chair, just kind of drifting in my mind. The doorbell startled me. Out of the window from my spot on the chair, I could see a stranger stand by my front door. I didn't answer as I wasn't expecting company and didn't even move from my chair. He hovered for a few moments, then got in a car parked at the curb and left. I watched him turn around the block and drive past my house again, going in the opposite direction. I decided not to think about it, didn't move from the chair, and continued spacing. About 20 minutes later, I was still in the same first glass of wine. I was not intoxicated by any means. I was barely drinking, to be honest. I noticed a woman walking past my house and stopped in front of it to stare at it. For a moment I thought, "Why the hell are you staring?" when I realized that she was walking a dog who apparently took a moment to relieve himself on my front lawn. I decided to get up from my chair and walk toward my window to see if she was going to clean that crap up. As I got up, I accidentally spilled a drop of red wine on my living room rug. My eye immediately went to the wine stain, and I thought, crap, I need to clean this up. I did take a moment to watch the woman at the window, and then I went to the kitchen quickly to grab a paper towel. While I was doing that, I noticed that the time was about 6:57 p.m. on my stove clock. I grabbed a paper towel and went back to my living room to pat the wine stain in the rug. I noticed that the woman was way down the street. When I looked down at my rug, I realized that there was no wine stain. The rug is patterned, but nonetheless, I knew exactly where it would have been, and it was no longer there. I inspected the rug and didn't find the stain. I thought for a moment that maybe there was never a wine stain, maybe because I felt like I may have spilled a drop of wine on the rug. My eye may have gone to a random pattern spot on the rug and assumed it was a wine stain. Although I can clearly remember the sensation of the wine spilling out of the glass and the clear wine drop on the rug. I looked at my cat, chilling nearby, who was now lying in a different position, and said, semi-jokingly, "Have we shifted or something?" I decided not to think too much of it, because this may not mean anything at all, and went back to the kitchen to put the paper towel down. I glanced at the stove clock and realized that it was blinking as if it had been reset. This usually only happens when I unplug the stove or the power goes out. I did not unplug the stove. I did not notice any momentary power outages because my air conditioner kept humming uninterrupted. Most notably, the time on the microwave clock, just above the stove, was not blinking. It was showing 7:07. That indicated that at least 10 minutes had passed, even though it felt like 1 or 2 minutes at the most. However, the blinking time on the stove was 12:57, which means that if the stove clock had reset the moment that I stepped out of the kitchen to clean the wine stain, it would have reset to 12. But the 12:57 was telling me that the clock had reset an hour earlier. There was no way that it took me an hour to walk a few feet from my kitchen to my living room, look at the rug, not find the stain, and go back to the kitchen. There was also a 10-minute discrepancy between the microwave clock and the stove clock, indicating that the stove had been out for 10 minutes before the clock reset. I paused for a moment, wondering if my mind was playing tricks on me, or if I was drunk. I'm not. I haven't even finished the first glass of wine yet, and the stove clock is still blinking. As I was typing this up and reading through the comments, I heard a siren go off in my usually very quiet neighborhood. I went outside to see what was going on. I felt really confused because it didn't sound like a real siren, had an almost cartoonish quality to it, and could not be localized. It's hard to explain. It kind of felt like it was everywhere and nowhere at once, and I couldn't tell if it was approaching or receding into the distance. I don't know if it was just in my head. The sound was gone the moment I went back inside. This morning I got a call from my mother, who lives in a different state, telling me that she and my dad had their own glitch experience overnight, involving malfunctioning electronics and timing misfires. For some reason, their garage door sensor did not work as she was pulling out of the garage, and the door began closing at the wrong time, causing significant damage to her car, but thankfully no injury. About an hour later, I got a text from a friend who lives on the other side of the country, telling me that she dreamt about me last night. Case file number 2848, written by KDBug84, Gone with the Trees. This is something that's happened a few times in the past month. On my route home from work, I pass these two houses every day, and have for 3 years. The houses are in a large field type of thing, one on each end, and there's always been a small patch of trees between them, like a little patch of woods. Large, fully grown trees with overgrown weeds and all of that. About a month ago, I was passing by and I noticed that the trees between the houses were gone. Nothing but a plain field with grass matching the rest of the field. I thought it was odd, but just figured maybe someone chopped it all down. That same day, on the way home from work, the trees were back again, fully grown and like they always have been. I chalked it up to just being tired on the morning drive, but a few days later driving past I noticed the trees were gone again. This time my daughter was with me, so I pointed it out about the trees. She said she's never noticed trees there before. When we passed back by, there were still no trees. A week ago, the trees were back again, looking just as overgrown as ever. Seen the trees several more times since, but this morning, the trees were gone again. When I get off work, I'm curious to pass by again. What the heck is up with these trees? Well, I mean, this is a classic shifting reality phenomenon, but normally it's not so back and forth so many times. That's curious. Something is pulling you between universes, and is it your soul or your full body going there? It seems like it's just your soul, but it's very clear it's different realities, given your daughter doesn't remember the trees ever being there, sometimes, when you're in that reality. I wonder which reality you'll settle on. Case file number 2849, written by Indiana Harris. The Forgotten Fourth. The strangest experience for me was going through my attic a few years ago and finding old photos, decided to digitize them to keep them safe. I was showing some of them to my wife and step-siblings when we were all up at my dad's for a family dinner. Me and my dad were laughing about various holidays and telling them random stories. About halfway through, there's a picture of me and a bunch of friends I'd made at the Hotel Kids Club. My dad made a comment of, "Where's your sister?" And I responded automatically, "Think she was playing pool," before stopping. Because I don't have a sister. Both of us looked at each other, properly confused, as was the rest of the family. But the strangest part is that thinking back on my childhood holidays, it feels like there was a fourth person who should have been there. I can remember moments where I'm turning to say something to someone who isn't my parents, but there's no one there. Okay, I hope I properly conveyed in my narration how shocked I was reading this one. It's an epic twist, it really is. And I mean, for something that actually happened, holy crap, that would be one of those pure WTF moments that is really, what the fluck just happened? I don't have a sister. I mean, I'm a single child. If my dad suddenly said, "Your sister," to me, like, what? No. Whew. Case file number 2850, written by A House Named Home. The Doppelganger at Noon. So, my girlfriend works 5-hour shifts at an aged care place, 7 to 12 p.m. today. And today, she texted me to say she was doing a double shift, which was honestly fair enough. I was sitting at my computer eating lunch in the office in my house at around 12:15 when I suddenly heard the office door open. I jumped and turned around to see my girlfriend standing in the doorway. She made this short little "ah" cry as if to sarcastically scare me. It was something she usually did to be funny. Then went off to the bedroom, presumably to get changed. I turned back to my computer to finish lunch and just sort of hung out there, waiting for her to reappear, but she didn't. I figured she was in the bedroom still, but the door was open and the room was empty. I walked through the house and there was no sign of her. I figured she might just be using the bathroom or something, so I thought nothing of it. Another 10 or so minutes passed by, and still no sound from any doors or anything. I checked the house again, and she is nowhere to be seen. I check outside, and her car is not outside, so I figured she went back to work for that double shift. I texted her, asking if she was doing a double shift, and she said yes. I said it was kind of weird to come home and then leave immediately after, as she never did that when working a double. She texted back, dead confused about what I was talking about. I said she came home and surprised me. She stated that she'd been at work all day. She swore up and down that she never came home. My girlfriend takes her work very seriously. With her travel time, she wouldn't have been able to come home and then go back to work before her second shift. So now, I'm left wondering if a doppelganger opened my office door and surprised me, or if I'm just going crazy. I think part of our spirits can project to places we want to be, especially near loved ones, I think. So I don't think it's a doppelganger in the classic sense, like a physical manifestation. It's just your girlfriend's spirit, which is kind of wholesome, you know? She just wanted to be around you, but she was stuck at work. Case file number 2851, written by National Mud 3607. The House Unburnt. Last week, my mom and I were driving through a familiar stretch of our neighborhood on our usual trip to the local shops. As we turned a corner, I noticed thick black smoke billowing into the sky up ahead. Curious and concerned, my mom took a detour down a side street to find the source. That's when we saw it, a 2-story house ablaze. Bright red flames poured from the roof and top-story window, cutting through the smoke. There were no firefighters on the scene yet. From our very clear vantage point, we could see the neighborhood and the adjacent single-story home stepping outside, clearly alarmed, and I noticed that there was a large gap between the two homes. The flames would have had to leap an improbable distance to reach the smaller house, and it was not a windy day. We made sure emergency services were on their way, and as we drove off, we heard sirens approaching. Later that night, the news ran a segment about the fire. But what caught us off guard was the report. It claimed the single-story house had been completely destroyed, with no mention of the 2-story home. According to the report, only one house had burned, and it wasn't the one we saw engulfed in flames. Yesterday, while driving to the shops again, we decided to pass by the site ourselves. What we saw left us stunned. The single-story home was a charred, gutted shell, just as the news had reported. But the 2-story house was perfectly intact, the roof untouched. The windows that had flames spewing out of them merely days before still had their blinds drawn neatly behind the glass. Case file number 2852, written by No Tumbleweed 544. Claim approved. I had an odd occurrence with a diamond gold bracelet worth about $2,100. I called my insurance agency, and they said they'd get on it by setting up a claim. A week later, this man called me from the adjusters to come out to my house. He was a very strange man. I told him how I lost it, which I believe might have been at the mall. He says, "Okay, do you want me to send a credit to the jewelry store you got it from to pick up another, or do you just want to check?" I don't recall which I picked. I asked him, "How do you believe my story?" because I thought this was too easy to replace. He uttered something extremely odd I'd rather not repeat. Whatever. I got a brand new bracelet. Never did find the missing one. About a week later, my insurance agency called me and said, "We're sorry we didn't get back to you about the missing bracelet, and we're going to get you on the claim right away and have someone get in touch with you about it." And I said, "But it's already been done." The guy came out and replaced my bracelet, and she was stunned, asking who, what guy, and he replaced it just like that with no review? It was very bizarre. I still sometimes think the bracelet might turn up in the house as I was putting it on to go out. Maybe it didn't quite clasp properly and it came off at home. But who was this guy? Yeah, I don't even want to know who this guy was. How the hell did he know you lost your bracelet, you filed a claim? Did he work for the insurance agency and just acted on his own because he was a creep? But then he still gave you an expensive credit or check or whatever? Yeah, I wonder what he said to you, because that probably reveals a lot. Case file number 2853, written by Cherry Chameleon. A trunk full of questions. This morning, I took my mother's car to work. My coworkers have a granddaughter, and I told her she could have my bassinet, and I would bring it to work today. This morning, we unattached the 4 legs from the bassinet and loaded it into my mother's car. I specifically remember thinking, "Oh, the feet of the legs are a little dirty, but it's not that bad," right after I placed them in the trunk. I called my coworkers when I arrived at work so we could move the bassinet and legs to her car. She didn't answer, so I locked the car and headed into work. Around lunchtime, she was ready to get the bassinet from my car. I opened the trunk, and the legs are nowhere to be found. I thought maybe I put the legs in my car trunk instead of my mom's. When I got home, the legs were neither in my mother's trunk nor in my trunk. They are just gone. My head is spinning. I'm just at a loss for words. No one would steal just legs without the bassinet attachment, and I've looked all around the house for the damn legs just in case. My brain hurts. I feel weird. What the fluck happened? Case file number 2854, written by Rua. Scroll, stare, and disappear. Earlier this year, my friend and I were staying at another friend's house to finish some paperwork. One morning around 9 a.m., I stepped outside to sit by the stairs while my friend stayed in to clean the room. It was her turn. I was casually scrolling through Instagram, just sitting there in plain view. A few minutes later, she came outside, saw me, and literally jumped. She asked, "Why are you sitting there? I came out a few minutes ago to throw trash and didn't see you at all." That threw me off. I told her I'd been there the whole time and didn't hear anyone come out or walk by. For context, there are 2 trash bins directly in front of the stairs. I was facing them. She told me that she had walked out, threw something in a dustbin, looked around and didn't see me. But I swear I was just sitting there, phone in hand, no music, no distractions, and no one passed in front of me. I didn't see or hear her, and she didn't see me. We both laughed it out, but it was really creepy. I'm not sure if we both glitched at the same time. I'm not sure what to make of it. Case file number 2855, written by Winnie Pooh 44, floating on the axis of everything. A very long time ago, I had an out-of-body experience and suddenly found myself floating just outside of what looked like the slots of a giant paddle wheel. All was smooth, like the pages of a book separated uniformly into long slots, spread out uniformly from a central core. Somehow I knew these were different realities and became frightened, not knowing how to get back to my original one. I somehow realized I would be pulled back to the correct one, and as soon as I thought that, I was sucked into a slot and back into my body. It didn't appear as though anything was different, but many things changed in my life after that. This occurred many decades ago, and it was so jarring that I have never forgotten it, and I've searched all this time for answers. Very recently, I happened upon a story where someone had something similar occur, and they referred to it as the wheel. I've always had a deep desire to see behind the curtain, and to know how it all really works. There has to be a science to it. We just don't know it yet, at least at this point on the timeline. This is why these stories have my attention. I really like this story. I like the idea, the concept of a wheel, or some representation of not the afterlife, but almost like the churn, where the spirits go in a buffer zone before they're resent somewhere else, reincarnated or transferred into a different version of themselves in a different quantum timeline. Yeah, just a fascinating idea. Now, I don't know if it really is a wheel. Does the manifested representation take from your personal bias or your personal preference, maybe? So maybe it's different what people would see, depending on who they are. Case file number 2856, written by Thrash Bear. Double vision at dawn. Driving to work, I approach our facility from our parking lot. Turning in, I notice 2 of my coworkers walking together towards the building, with the third coworker walking behind them. Me and the first 2 coworkers always park in the same spot next to each other, and I notice their cars aren't there. Just as I'm turning off my car, they pull in beside me. I'm caught off guard because I just saw them walking in that very parking lot not 10 seconds earlier. If they're just pulling in now, then who are those other people? Getting to the door, there are only 2 other people waiting for the store to open, neither of which fit their description. I asked my third coworker who they were, who was walking behind them. He said he didn't see anyone. If that wasn't them, then who were the 2 people I did see? And if my third coworker didn't see them at all, despite walking directly behind them, were they even there in the first place? Now time for the jokes of the day. I recently found out they don't have the real Mona Lisa in the Louvre. It turns out it's just a painting of her. After we left Costco and started the long walk back to our car, my wife looked at me and asked, "Are you okay?" I said, "Yeah, I'm just going through a lot right now." I told my wife that her new lacy bra hugs the curves in all the right places. She looked me dead in the eye and said, "Take that off." Hey, experimental, right? At least he has an open mind. I once dated a girl who had a twin, and people often asked if or how I could tell them apart. I said it was easy. Allison painted her nails red, and Bob had a beard. As I handed my dad his 50th birthday card, he looked at me with tears in his eyes and said, "You know, 1 would have been enough." Alright, if you want even more videos, there's a video up here. YouTube thinks you'll like it. Click it. Remember to like the video and subscribe. See you next time.